Thanks for joining us today on Speaking of Spirits. Today we're going to talk about the lore of the werewolf, where it came from, get some information on it, and just have some fun with it today. So we're glad you're here. Glad you could join us today. Werewolf. Now, honestly, werewolf is one of my favorites. You know, people are always asking, would you be the werewolf or the vampire? I always choose werewolf. I don't know.
I was team werewolf myself.
Team werewolf.
I just always think that would be cool. So.
I guess we've talked about this before, and I think having to buy a new outfit every month would kind of suck. But you know,
well, that wouldn't hurt me because I haven't bought new clothes in like 12 years. So.
No, I think I shop all my clothes at the feed store, so I always look like a hick. So maybe I should. Maybe a werewolf would be good.
You know, the clearance section at Cow Store.
There you go. See,
You can find some
that's
awesome
what I'm talking
things.
about. Tractor Supply, bring it on.
So for me, that may not be a bad thing.
I know, right? I don't know. You know, the American Werewolf in London, the whole transformation was such a piece of beauty in the movies. I mean, for its time, you know.
That's why that movie, one of the reasons that movie was so good.
Oh,
is
my
the,
God.
The
And just
effects
the-
they had in there and how they
Yeah. And
did the transition.
Oh,
was
the
incredible.
bones and how everything was stretching and the pain he went through. I'm like, no, I don't know. I'll go with the bat. I like the bat. I'll be a bat.
Not Mikey.
Yeah. God, that was a great movie, man.
Yeah, I'll never forget when he was on top of the van. Wasn't it a van or was it a truck? It was a van, wasn't
It
it?
was a van.
Van,
was a van.
yeah, it was a van.
When I was in high school, my friend had a Ford Explorer.
Yeah.
We tried to reenact that scene. Let me tell you, he did not just stand up there. All right?
Kids, don't try this at home.
And I wonder why my hip hurts so bad.
No reason.
Yeah.
Okay, well, werewolves are interesting because there's just about every culture has some type of werewolf
Yeah.
lore to it, all around the world, and it goes way back in history too.
Yeah. So
Way back.
425 BC was the earliest that I saw. Can you believe
Wow.
that? It was a Greek historian, and I'll slaughter this name. Herod. Okay, help me. Herod. This one.
Frank.
Frank. Anyway, Herodotus.
Herodotus,
Herodotus.
whatever.
I don't
that
know.
is.
Anyway, he described the Nuri, a nomadic tribe of magical men who changed into wolf shapes for several days a year. The Nuri were from Scythia land, which is now part of Russia. Using wolf skins for warmth is not outside the realm of possibility for the inhabitants of that climate, and it could be the reason why they were described as changing into wolves. But the werewolf myth became integrated in local history of Arcadia, a region in Greece, where Zeus was worshipped as a lycan Zeus, wolf Zeus. In 380 BC, the Greek philosopher Plato told a story in the Republic about how protector turned tyrant, the shrine of lycan Zeus. In this short passage, the character Socrates remarks, "The story goes that he who tastes of the one bit of human entrails minced up with those of other victims is inevitably transformed into a wolf. So 380
Wow.
BC.
Well, that's long enough to
goes
get to
way
know
back.
somebody.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite a long ways ago that people were
That
talking
goes
about
way back, yeah.
the changing into a wolf.
And there's something about Russia and werewolves too. A lot
Well,
of werewolves in Russia.
A lot of wolves in Russia,
That
and
could be too.
the wolves are enormous in Russia.
That could be part of it though too.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it was a creature that, well, wolves have been around forever,
sure.
and they tend to cover, you know, in packs. They tend to move night, and
Right.
so it would be understandable that years and years ago there would be,
Yeah,
you know, some lore or stories about them.
yeah. I've read
Whatever.
accounts of people who were in Russia on different mountain climbing expeditions and different things like that over there, right? Who were encircled and attacked by wolves, and they're much more aggressive than even our, you know, timber wolves and our Yellowstone wolves and everything else. Much more aggressive.
I hear there's a lot of vodka over there too.
Well,
Mix all these things
now
together.
come
I
on
don't
now.
know if any of that gets connected, but
Could be. I don't know. So it's kind of interesting. So it's unclear where the werewolf legend originated.
yeah, I have no idea. I know it's the earliest ones I could find were in Europe, but where at? Really, that's all it said was Europe.
So
There's some in, Russia gets mentioned a lot. Germany
Yes.
gets mentioned,
Germany, right?
but there is no. I don't think you can really pinpoint the origin of the werewolf.
No, it's some scholars believe the werewolf made its debut in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh, yes.
You know this? See, you're so well read. I'm reading feed store supply bags, and you're reading the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest Western known prose, right? So it was Gilgamesh jilted a potential lover because she had turned her previous mate into a wolf. So,
There was probably no reason for that. But
well, you never know, right, ladies? Just saying. Also, they emerged early in the Nordic folklore in the saga of Volsungs. Did you read that too?
I did not read that, but
Okay.
when you said Nordic, that triggered me. Yeah, because werewolves legend is also
Huge over there.
Huge.
Huge, yeah. Tells the story of a father and son who discovered wolf pelts that had the power to turn people into wolves for 10 days. Don't laugh. It could be true.
It sure could be. I'm sorry. I just, you know, for some reason, the movie Willow, the little dudes wearing the rat things, that's what's popped into my mind.
So, the father and the son duo donned the pelts and transformed into wolves and went on a killing rampage in the forest. The rampage ended when the father attacked his son, causing a lethal wound. The son only survived. Well, it says a lethal wound, but then it goes on to say the son only survived because of a kind raven gave the father a leaf with healing powers.
It's probably based on a true story.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure it
Kid
is.
probably mouthed off, and that was it, man.
Yeah, I was doing some research on the early werewolf things, and you tend to go down rabbit holes.
Mhm.
And by golly, when I had working internet earlier today,
Like
Before
10
we
minutes
got
ago.
here.
oh,
God.
I went down the rabbit hole, and I was looking at YouTube sounds, and they had sounds of what they claim is a werewolf, and sounds of the wolf, and like I was comparing different werewolf videos to it, and it was striking how different the calls were.
Really?
Yeah, it was, you know, how they are kind of the regular wolves are more of a high pitched.
Yeah.
And the one that they were claiming was a werewolf. It was bassy and like it was tones down. And again, as I was falling through the hole in the internet, they were saying that they can tell it's not a wolf because of the tone.
Is your internet working yet? So we can play this for our listeners?
I so wish I could.
Well,
And
we are having internet issues right now. We'll come back.
yeah, there's a lot of good things about Idaho. one of the bad things is the internet.
Internet is just horrible here.
Mm-hmm. Let me press the button. I'm going to see what's going to happen
We
here.
were actually on an investigation, and I've mentioned this before, and we heard a sound that I later found out was a werewolf, according to one of the said recordings on YouTube.
Was this
And
the
it was a very unique
Blackfoot
sound.
one?
Yeah, it was a Blackfoot one.
Yeah. It was a unique sound.
When we were up there in Blackfoot, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very solid sound. I was standing inside the house in the living room talking to the father of the family and heard this noise, and I was hoping we had it recorded because we had a recorder going.
I should go back and re-listen to that investigation again.
Because I was really hoping that recorder picked up that noise because it came out of nowhere and it was solid.
That was a bizarro investigation, and so yeah.
I halfway remember this, and I thought we nabbed some when we were talking about skinwalkers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that? Didn't we?
Yeah,
have-
there are some
we
recordings on on the internet that claim to be werewolves.
Mm-hmm. So many so-called werewolves from centuries ago were in fact serial killers, and France had its fair share. In 1521, Frenchmen Pierre Bourgault and Michel Verdun allegedly swore allegiance to the devil and claimed to have an ointment that turned them into wolves. After confessing to brutally murdering several children, they were both burned to death at the stake. Burning was thought to be one of the few ways to kill a werewolf.
Werewolves get very few. Burning is one, and silver bullets or silver, pure silver.
Yeah.
So that's one of the very few things. Oh, and the herb wolfbane.
Wolfbane, right.
So werewolves are pretty resilient. There's not a whole lot of things that'll get them. And then, according to a lot of lore, the deal with the devil is one of the ways to become a werewolf.
Oh, you can either play the guitar real good or be a werewolf.
Yeah.
Right?
Those are your options.
That's it. That's funny.
A or B.
Yeah.
So this Pierre Bourgault, who was then burned to death or for killing, it said that he was out one evening gathering sheep before a storm. He claimed in the trial of 1521 that on this fateful night, 3 men in black accosted him. They demanded Bourgault denounce God and all things holy. In agreement, the men would grant him riches and guarantee the safety of his lost flock. He reluctantly agreed, but after a while began to regret his decision. It was that time when he met this Michel Verdun, meeting that, forever changed their fate. Verdun convinced Bourgault to accompany him to a meeting of supposed warlocks. During their rendezvous, the two stripped down naked and applied salve to their bodies. Soon after...
Now it's a party.
Yeah, that's a party. Bourgault claimed that he and Verdun grew beast-like fur all over their bodies and that their hands and feet became clawed. The pair became werewolves and together went on this murderous rampage that gripped the French countryside. I'm not even going to say what the name of the countryside is. In terror. Legend has it some of the children they abducted were never found. Their young corpses assumed to have been consumed by them. After the two alleged werewolves had been found guilty, which was easy since they confessed to the crimes, they were burned alive on stakes. Their fate wasn't unexpected since their terrible crimes occurred amidst the notorious inquisitions and witch trials. Anyway.
Well, so once we did the witch trial podcast,
Right.
I started thinking about the kind of coercion that someone would have to do to a person to get them to agree to burn at the stake and have a false confession.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Well, there's some people who suspect that maybe whatever salve that they were putting on their body had some kind of hallucinogenic properties to it, and so they were, completely.
That's an idea, but again, one of the few ways the salve on the body is one of the few ways reported to become a werewolf. So this story's got a lot of different.
If you have some of that out there, would you ship that to P.O.
Yeah.
Box 62? I'm just saying. I want to try it.
Yeah, let me know. We'll get
Yeah,
back
well, give us a ring.
Label it Jacob.
So, Gilles Garnier was known as the Werewolf of Dole. And so this information I found on the internet, just so you know, was another 16th century Frenchman whose claim to fame was also an ointment with wolf morphine abilities. According to legend, as a wolf, he viciously killed children and ate them. What is the deal with the kids?
I don't know.
Can't you just go out and, eat some dude who's just mouthing off at you at the bar? He was also burned at the stake for his monstrous crimes. Good thing. So, kind of interesting.
That is, and a lot of thinking about a lot of this. If you're going back, a couple centuries, where a lot of these stories are before we had electricity or anything.
Yeah.
If you were inclined to want to do something bad, then probably running around in a wolf skin would be a pretty good disguise.
Well, what's that movie, The Village?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Where they use the skins?
Mm-hmm.
That was a fascinating movie. I love M. Night Shyamalan and stuff.
Yeah,
It's really
that was
good.
a good movie. For
Yeah,
sure.
but exactly. So, and the other thing is you develop a lot of these legends to scare your kids into staying home or close or not
that's the other
traveling
thing
from
is-
village to village or...
And that could be why a lot of these were supposedly attacking children. Is that what really happened, or is that what the lore is to keep the children from leaving the village?
Or anybody.
Anybody
Yeah,
but
Just keep me home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And there's that. Or again, the internet has lots of holes
oh yes,
that you can just trip over, and all of a sudden you're going down the hole.
Well, he's spending all his time on TikTok now.
Well, someone has to. We don't want that big Chinese company going broke.
No. Yeah. Oh boy.
So, on one of my many recent trips down the hole, they were saying that different organizations across the centuries have used kids and scared them first for their blood. And they do different blood rituals with it. Anyway, I don't encourage
No, wait, what?
going down the internet. Yeah, that's what they say. Apparently,
You scare the kids first and then get their blood? So they have like endorphins in the blood?
Mhm.
Okay, that's creepy and weird.
It's really creepy, and I went halfway down that hole and decided I didn't want to know any more. And I came back up.
you probably
Yeah.
already knew too much.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when I looked at Wikipedia and some other things at the beginning of the werewolf thing and how the first stories involved kids, I wondered, of course, I haven't had a lot of sleep lately. So I will abstract with this. If, organizations have been doing this through time. Da-da-da.
Yes.
Anyway, so don't look at the internet at late night and trip down holes. But-
Yeah, and
But I don't
okay.
think we can completely rule that out.
No,
either.
I'm going to say that's probably where I get most of my research
Mhm.
done is late at night when I can't sleep.
Mhm.
So there's the story of this Bedburg werewolf, and this is a dude named Peter Stubb, a wealthy 15th century farmer in Bedburg. I had to read that 3 times because I kept thinking Bedbug, Germany. Maybe the most notorious werewolf of them all. He apparently turned into a werewolf at night and devoured people of Bedburg. So it wasn't just kids this time. He was eventually blamed for the killings after being cornered by hunters who claimed they saw him shapeshift from a wolf to a human. He experienced a grisly execution after confessing under torture to savagely killing animals, men, women, and children and eating their remains. He also declared he owned an enchanted belt that gave him power to transform to a wolf at will. And again, if anybody has that belt, you can...
Yeah, if anybody has one of those,
please.
let me know.
Anyway, under torture, they confess. Well, you're going to confess to just about anything if the torture is brutal and long enough.
If burning at a stake looks good to you,
Looks better than where you are now.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
yeah.
I'm not against torture. I'm
Yeah.
not completely opposed to it. I want to say, I mean, when you're at war, you're at war. But I still think, torture now is waterboarding. Back then, it wasn't waterboarding. Well,
Oh, so that's what my lungs look like.
Yes.
yeah, I know. Flayed. Yeah, no.
I was kind of using that.
Yeah, that was a part that belonged to me. And you sew it back on. Thank you. So then we go back to our shapeshifters as werewolves, right? Legends maintain werewolves shapeshift at will.
They do yeah, that's one of the legends that they shapeshift. But I also want to say one of the other interesting things about the werewolf legend is that when they become the werewolf, there's something about that gives the taste for human flesh. And I think that's where a lot of the lore, specifically with making a pact with the devil, a lot of that kind of gets tied in. So.
Yeah.
Well, and it's amazing how it all kind of ties in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, if we're talking, centuries ago, and you had a wolf, a big wolf, who was a very good hunter, who would, attack animals, and, maybe people if they got too far out from the village and things like that. If you can't identify the wolf, it's always nice if you can have somebody to blame for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And it's amazing the size of wolves.
Oh, they're huge.
Yep.
So growing up, we had two. We had one full wolf that my dad owned. He was Arctic timber wolf, and the sweetest dog you'd ever want to meet in your life.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's good.
I know, but he came up past my hip. My bloodhound's big, and she's 134 pounds, give or take. And she comes up to my hip. Killer was bigger.
wow.
And but his name was Killer, and I swear he wouldn't hurt a kitten.
So, is what they say about wolves true? So the old saying is, when they started breeding puppies, if they went down to get water, and they sucked the water versus lapping, they got rid of the ones that sucked and kept the ones that lapped.
I don't remember how either of them drank water, honestly. I can tell you, so we had Killer and we had Clyde. Clyde was a half wolf. He wasn't Arctic timber wolf. He was just, I don't know. Is there just an American wolf? Anyway, he was just a
Used to
half
be.
wolf. He was a wolf.
He was a wolf.
He
of
was a
something.
wolf and shepherd. He was a cross. And both of them howled at the moon every night.
Yeah.
Every night. And they had the wolf eyes, which are completely different than dog eyes. And they were terrifying to anybody who didn't know them. I mean, they were like I said, really actually pretty gentle dogs. But our neighbor came through the front door and flung his baseball cap at my parents one night just as a greeting. And Clyde was off the floor and onto that guy so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had him on the floor, and we were trying to pull the dog off of him because he perceived it as a threat, I guess, but he was, we had chickens running around. He wouldn't touch them. I mean, they're unusual dogs. Not saying that a wolf was for everybody for sure, because they're,
No, they got some very special things. You got to know what you're doing to have
but,
a wolf as a pet. But
yeah.
Pocatello is a unique place. All right. It's really unique. When I was a boy, there was a guy who had a minivan, and him and his wolves lived in the minivan. You remember that? Anyway, one day.
And he lived through it.
Yeah, I was swinging, and the guy stopped to let this pack out, and I was like, holy cow. Like, they were huge. You can go to Yellowstone, and you can see the wolves, and you say, oh, look, real big dogs. But if there's not a fence involved, man, those guys are big.
Well, not only that, usually when you're seeing them in Yellowstone or out in the wild, they're not right next to you. So it's really hard to get a scale. Now, like I said, my bloodhound's, 134 pounds. Maybe I put her on a diet like forever. She's always mad at me. So maybe she's a little thinner right now, but that was her heaviest weight. And when you see her paw print in the mud or the snow or out on the trail, she's terrified of the woods, so she doesn't go out much. She's a worthless. But people, when it's funny because they're going, oh my God, like the size of that print. There's wolves up here. And I'm chuckling because I know it's Daisy and she's a dork. But it's think of that. She's not as big as the wolf we had. Mm-hmm. And her paw print, it's massively bigger than my hand print.
Let me see if I can look.
Or the palm part of my hand.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things living in Idaho, it's not uncommon to find somebody who has a wolf or partial wolf as a pet.
Right.
So they're fairly common around here.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, one of your neighbors, Tim, has one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lives just a couple of doors down from you.
Uh-huh.
So
I hear it.
Yes, you do hear him. Yes, he's quite a big dog too, and he's a wonderful dog. But I wouldn't, you wouldn't go there uninvited. So one of the things is, psychologists. Are you going to play the sound?
No, the internet's not here.
He's getting ready to throw his phone through the window. For those of you who
keep trying.
So I don't have a good size thing here. I thought I did.
A good what? Oh.
Oh, here. Okay. So
you got it.
So these are paw prints that were up at the property, and they're canine prints.
Okay, but there's no banana for scale, so we don't know.
That's my footprint.
Oh my God! Well, the snow makes everything look bigger.
Mm-hmm. I know, and I grant that.
Yeah.
But for you at home who don't know me, I have a size 15 shoe.
You do?
I do.
Holy crud!
And the picture we're looking at, the paw print, of course, it's had the sun stuff and it's expanded, but it's about as big as my shoe.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge.
That's huge.
And I was up there. This was probably 2 winters ago.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe the prints I was seeing. It was crazy.
That's enormous.
Yeah. And it's just the other side of Lava Hot Springs.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I got to be crazy. Or it's a big dog, it's something, because they don't have wolves around here. And this last summer, they had a picture of a wolf running across a field right outside of lava. And I was like, I'm not crazy.
Right. Well, and that's always the official word. Yeah, there are no wolves here. They're just transient wolves trying to pack up somewhere else.
Right.
Right.
So I see this paw print next to my size 15 shoe, and I think, holy cow. And that's not as big as big wolves.
No. No, werewolves are not that big. I mean, they're big, but not that big. So, there's the psychologist, medical doctors, medical field. They always poo-poo everything, and that's fine. I guess that's their job. But according to a study that was conducted in Australia's Calvary Mater Newcastle Hospital, the full moon brings out the beast in many humans. The study found that of 91 violent acute behavior incidents at the hospital between August 2008 and July 2009, 23% happened during a full moon.
Well, you could ask any truck driver you wanted to, and it would have been cheaper.
Well, yeah. So my mom was a cop for 20 odd years, right? And cop and in dispatch, and absolutely without a doubt, full moon, they had a higher number of officers on. They had a higher number of violent incidents. They had a higher number of behavioral health problems. I mean, they were busy nights. It was like the night before, the full moon, and the night after.
So tracking things is a hobby, I guess you could say. And I drove a truck at night for a really long time, so I had to keep my mind busy. And so I saw a lot of accidents on 84 and 86, and I always saw an accident when it was a full moon. Always. Yeah, it's. I know I don't sleep well. And on nights, well, I don't sleep well anyways. That's why I could be a bat really easy. But full moon nights for me are like nearly impossible. And even with blackout curtains and even with all of the other stuff, your mind is in tune with the moon, And as like, oh, forget about it. I know it's a full moon. I don't even have to look at the calendar or go outside. It's just like, oh, here we go again. So maybe I should be a wolf.
Well, there's the science side of that is that we know that the moon affects the tides of the ocean.
Sure.
And so we know that it has an effect on water, and the human body is like 90% water. So it would make sense then that if the full moon does affect water, then it would have an effect on humans. And
Yeah.
we've known for decades then that
Well, we're what, 70%
cops and
water?
something like that. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's
Well, with me,
very
it's
high
about
percentage.
30% whiskey. Just saying.
Water or water-based products.
There you go. Let's,
But we've known for decades then that police officers and ER have been telling us then that full moons are busier nights.
so the last stuff that I've been reading is on history. I think history.com if you want to go look at it. And in this hospital study, when you're talking about that, right? They said that of those, the higher incidence of criminal or, horrible behavior by patients. Patients attack staff and displayed wolf-like behaviors such as biting, spitting, and scratching. I don't know how many wolves that spit, but anyway. Although many were under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time, it is unclear why they became so intensely violent when the moon was full. So.
But even, for a group of people, emergency room, who are used to drilling with drunk people,
Right.
They even noticed a slight difference in the number of people who were hyper aggressive with the trying to bite or attack.
Right.
As opposed to the normally drunk people. But
So, I was an EMT for a few years, and one of my favorite nurses at the hospital, whenever we got someone like that, she'd say, if you move one more time, I'm putting a catheter in.
And
it is amazing how everybody just kind of...
that just chills right out right there.
so, I guess, so I did find some more information. The idea of shape-shifting humans has been around since ancient times and remains an evocative theme today, but less attention has been given to the clinical lycanthropy, which is a condition, though rare, it does occur where people actually have hair all over their body and have elongated hands and feet. And different.
There is a medical...
Yes, there's a medical condition to it.
Medical condition that does exist.
Yeah.
Ruined my thunder. That's what I was going to bring up.
Oh, sorry.
The bearded lady.
Oh, da-da-da. Yeah. Right? So, there's a condition that they link it to schizophrenia also. In reviewing 56 cases of delusional metamorphosis into an animal, this Dr. Bloom, and I think I found this on livescience.com, Dr. Bloom found 25% of the patients were diagnosed with schizophrenia, 23 with psychotic depression, and 20 with bipolar disorder. Among the patients, 34 were men and 22 women. Their symptoms lasted anywhere from an hour to decades.
And how recent was this? Did it say?
I did not. Oh, 1850.
Okay.
So it's got to be a lot higher now.
It's going to be a lot higher now.
Yeah. So, yeah. The first case report on clinical lycanthropy was published in 1852. Described a man admitted to an asylum in Nancy, France, who was convinced he had turned into a wolf. To demonstrate this, this Dr. Bloom explained the man parted his lips with his fingers to show his alleged wolf's teeth and complained that he had cloven feet and body covered with long hair. He only wanted to eat raw meat, but when it was given to him, he refused because it was not rotted enough.
Well, when you have standards.
Yeah. So other patients in the reports had similar delusions about changes in their appearance. One saw the head of a wolf when looking at himself in the mirror. Another, why can't I see a supermodel? Just saying. You know what I mean? Okay. One saw another was convinced the bones in her body had been replaced by a pig's, and one felt claws growing in her feet. So, entertaining, no? I guess,
Yeah, well, we use pig valves.
Yeah.
Maybe she was just
She was before
foretelling.
her time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was what it was. Maybe that's where the idea came from.
Yeah, reading this study.
So, for millennia, explanations of lycanthropy were metaphysical. Eventually, modern science raised the idea that brain diseases cause the condition. Brain imaging studies have pointed to specific brain areas that appear to be essential for creating a sense of physical existence and perceiving our body schema. So, like our cortex, right?
That's I mean, if somebody really believes they're experiencing something,
right?
You know, if they really believe it,
And who's to say if
are they experiencing
are
it?
they
Are
or
they
are
not?
I
they?
know,
Yeah, you know?
exactly. That's what I was going to say.
And then we have to come up with something to diagnose them with.
And is that a comfort for them or a comfort for us?
Yeah, exactly. That's a
Right.
good point. Which side are we
Yeah.
comforting here?
Right. It's hard to argue with 350 BC, the first accounts.
Yeah. Well,
It's
when we
kind
were
of hard
talking
to
about
argue with that.
the skinwalkers, it was before that, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Like it had been.
Yeah. Actually, it was even before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
forever.
yeah. So I don't know. Are there psychological conditions out there that people, have schizophrenia or whatever, and it's leading them to believe that they're a wolf? Sure. I kind of I have such a hard time saying that legends don't have a kernel of truth, because they have to have sprung from somewhere. So it's hard to argue with 350 BC or 450 BC or whatever it is, where they had Socrates and Plato and all these people describing these things.
Yeah, and what's the line for legend or fairy tale?
See, now that's my question: is where is the line on this? Because is there somebody who has a medical condition? Where they because we know these medical conditions exist.
Sure.
Where maybe they have extra body hair.
Right.
And again, going back a few centuries, if you were not considered normal, then you were not a part of the community. So you lived outside of
Right.
the village.
Mm-hmm.
So you lived outside the village, maybe in your place down in the swamp, and you did your hunting and you did your fishing and you did what you had to do to survive. And every once in a while, a villager would see you.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're killing small game because that's all you could do, because you didn't have the village to help you.
Or,
Provide.
There was times where all you could do was kill small game because it was the king's deer.
You're right.
Like,
Yes.
so, yeah.
and then if you also layered on top of that, if you did have a real predator in the area, a wolf or whatever, that did start killing, things in the area and have that, the wolf tracks and the big paw prints around it and that, then you start connecting these two things. Oh yeah, we've got this, this wolf is actually killing things around the village. And, oh, by the way, I saw this other
Yeah, Frank was out there
person
too.
that we don't know. Yeah.
Maybe Frank's the wolf. Right.
Yeah, Frank,
Yeah.
who we kicked out of the village 30 years ago, is still running around.
Right.
And,
Right.
So I guess that all boils down to, if you or a family member has an uncontrollable desire to go on top of a van and dance around and howl at the moon, you may have some sort of viable werewolf problem.
Could be. Could be.
or you may have some bigger issues.
Yeah. Tim says he doesn't drink a lot, but sometimes I just don't believe that.
Yeah, well.
Okay, yeah. Or if you have one of those magic belts, again, reach out to us. Let us
Yeah,
know. I'm interested in that. So.
Absolutely.
All
Or
right.
Jacob solve.
As always, we thank you for joining us today. So glad you could be with us today on Speaking of Spirits, and we'll talk to you on the next podcast.